Welcome back to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center, continuing my conversation with human resource professional Barbara Schultz. Glad you stayed with me.
I'm in here for the long haul.
All right, so I want to transition a little bit over to, still talking about the generational divide, but talk about Simon Sinek. I know he's someone that I had the opportunity to not meet, but sit in on a workshop that he was doing, and I know that you talk a lot about.
Yeah, so I had a question in my head, like, why are we where we are? So these are not original thoughts, very inspired by Simon Sinek after having watched his TED show. And he came up with a couple of factors that are certainly not all of them, but I thought they were really kind of hitting a lot of ideas that were very relevant. So in fact, I wrote an article called Hey Millennials, It's Not Your Fault.
Great article.
Thank you.
Love the title.
Yeah, so hoping that it was balanced to say, well, it's not your fault. Here are the things that have happened, and oh, by the way, I'm not really letting you off the hook either. So Simon says that there are things that have happened in the past that have really, molded what's going on now, and one of the things is parenting. So. While parents absolutely want to help their kids be confident and be supportive, I guess my take on it is may have gone a little bit too far with that idea. And by that I mean, I look back even on my own son's soccer teams from way back when, and I'm pretty competitive, so the thought of everyone getting a trophy didn't really sit well with me. So you come in first, you come in dead last, and there's a big celebration on either end. Good stuff, except when you enter the workforce, you have that expectation that I'm great, and doesn't necessarily matter what the results are, and that doesn't work so well in the workforce. The other thing is technology, which we really talk about all the time when we talk about the future workforce. And I discovered kind of an answer to a question, which is, why do kids have their face in their phones? And it's not just kids, by the way. You walk into a restaurant and you see a couple who don't even speak with each other. And there's an actual physiological reaction, that your brain emits dopamine, which is, leading you to a pleasurable experience. So if you think that you or your kids are addicted to phones, they are. Another factor that Simon talks about is impatience. And needless to say, in a world where it's a 24/7 world, you can have, anytime, anywhere connections, that, sometimes leads to instant gratification. So kind of tying that back to the workplace, it's no small wonder that a next-gen kid might think that there's no reason why they should wait for a promotion, because they're not waiting for anything. The last factor that he talks about is environment. And what he's talking about there is really the institutions of banking, religion, politics, and could literally write a whole chapter on that. But you had asked earlier about social responsibility, and that's one of the ways it sort of manifests itself. That and again, this isn't about every millennial, but many kids are moving away from formal religion. A lot of kids may have seen their parents go through really tough times in the early 2000s. Perhaps mom or dad lost his or her job, foreclosed on the house. So they're not real thrilled with the prospect of how things are going. Economy is really good right now, but if you say, trust in the institutions, including employers, they say, maybe I need to move on. I don't have loyalty to, any one place.
Is that why, I mean, I know we talk about impatience and instant gratification. Is that why we're seeing the next generation, if you will, why they're leaving jobs after, 16, 17, 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, there are...
It's kind of a combination of...
It is, and there are a lot of other factors too. Let's not forget what's going on in the world right now, which is low unemployment. And so that can change. In my lifetime, I've seen it go up and down, but, it's ripe for the job seeker, any job seeker. So, that's in their favor, that unemployment is really low. Young kids are feeling underemployed. So if they, on one hand, are very well educated, which they are, better educated than generations before, they have a real expectation that in exchange for that, and oh, by the way, they may have and do have an average of $40,000 in debt. So for that, they say, what exactly did I spend my money on? And if I'm not going to get job satisfaction or good compensation here, I have no problem picking up and leaving because I don't share the same values, for one thing, that the older generation did.
And I know I read a stat about that generation is, going to change jobs 14, 15 times over the lifetime of their career.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, a couple of stats about millennials to kind of bring it into perspective of why should you care, why do we care? Because I call it, the force to be reckoned with. So today, people probably don't realize, unless they're really, looking at the news, that 35% of the entire U.S. workforce are millennials. In 2 years from now, 50%. In 2025, 75%. So you think, okay, well, the unenlightened would say, well, I guess I just have to deal with them, which is not the way you should be looking at it. But it really goes beyond that because today 20% of millennials are in leadership positions. So it's not just a matter of, well...
So a third of them make up the workforce and 20% of them are in leadership positions.
Right.
Yeah.
So, here's the deal. That's not just someone you have to kind of... try to understand. That could be your boss. That could be the person who's interviewing you. So, it's important to understand where we're at with just the population.
You talked earlier about, companies really trying to, recognize they have more seasoned worker as well as that, next gen. I would imagine that they're doing, some sort of retreats or something that they can do within the office work day to kind of bring those folks together, right? So that they can make it more. Have you seen that or heard that or read about that? I know.
I have seen it a little bit up close and personally talked to an employer who was talking about young people texting, and texting inappropriately, and by that I mean that they may decide that they don't want to work there anymore and give no notice, and in fact their notice is a text saying, sorry, I won't be coming in tomorrow. And it's very frustrating for an employer. But it's not an anomaly. It has happened often enough that this particular employer decided that he was going to have a focus group and talk to the hiring managers and the kids, because to us it would seem intuitive that you don't do that. But it isn't. And so rather than kind of wringing their hands about it and saying, why is this happening, they're going to actually have a focus group to talk about the differences and professional etiquette. I think that's a great idea.
And really understanding that you might need a referral, and so you're not going to get that if you're texting bye-bye,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could do it once or twice perhaps, but eventually it catches up with you.
So why are older workers struggling to understand millennials?
I think a couple of reasons. We talked about the 5 different generations. We all grew up, in a different environment where, maybe we have different values. So, I walked into the office I was telling you about and went, oh, no, there aren't any offices. There's just, workspace. And I mean, something that, we maybe don't even think about is I always worked in a very competitive environment. So the notion of let's collaborate sounds great on paper, but it's a difficult thing for people who have kind of climbed the corporate ladder to say, well, no, I have arrived, and the whole notion of teams or collaboration is honestly kind of a tough thing. I think that older workers realize that they're maybe towards the end of their career. So that's emotional. It's an emotional thing, I guess, is the best way that I would put it. And they don't want to be disregarded. That's understandable. And they want to continue to contribute as long as they're there. So if they feel like someone is edging them out, and especially on the techie front, it's very frustrating to see someone who might be hitting the milestones faster than you are.
Yeah, and also I was just thinking, their values are different. I think you elaborated on that earlier, and their points, the way we look at things are just different.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I think in the final analysis, we'll find that young people really want what we want. Which reminds me, we talk about millennials and generalizations, and my son would be on the higher end of the millennials, and by that I mean he's 35 years old. So interesting to listen to him about what he has to say. So reality is he's married, he's got a child, he's got a mortgage, and he's got credit. Kind of sounds like an adult.
He's adulting.
Yes, he is. And then, if you look at the other end of the spectrum, I'd call them financial fledglings who, maybe they're still at home with mom and dad. And so, you see the older kids evolving more towards the middle, I guess I would say.
This has been a really good conversation. I can't believe that we are coming to the end of it.
I can't either.
Yeah, really a lot of good stuff. I'm excited about the book you're writing and look forward to reading more articles that you are going to be putting out there. So,
great.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. So thank you so much for being a part of this month's edition of Career Center. And to our television audience, if you are in job transition or looking to advance your career, visit the Community Career Center at 1815 West Hill Road, Suite 900 in Naperville, or search us on the web at communitycareercenter.org to assist you as you search for your next success. Thanks so much for watching.